So we've been talking about attachment theory, and today we really want to get into avoidant, but the other attachment styles are secure, anxious, and disorganized. So let's jump into avoidant.
Yeah, so what are some of the key characteristics? I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is that independence and that self-reliance. A person that has avoidant attachment style is very much so independent and self-reliant. They don't like to be dependent on other people. You know, that's the level that they seek, is to be completely self-reliant on just themselves solely.
And in that comes the component of trust, right? I can trust myself, but I can't necessarily trust anyone else.
Right, exactly.
So then the next one I think is really important to take note of is the emotional disconnection, right? So it's kind of that piece where you really create distance between you and others that you may be even developing an emotional relationship with. You immediately seek distance from that. It's uncomfortable to be vulnerable. It's uncomfortable to be able to really share some of those deep things about yourself or to bond in that fashion because it really feels scary and uncomfortable.
You're putting up that wall.
Exactly.
Right, because you are afraid.
Well, essentially, right underneath all of these,
Right.
it's you're trying to protect yourself in one way or another. And with avoidant attachment, you don't necessarily even put yourself in that position. You just make sure you have enough distance, you have enough space where everybody's an arm length away.
Right.
Nobody can get too close to hurt you.
Right, exactly. And hand in hand with that is difficulty with intimacy. People that have avoidant attachment style really have a hard time being intimate, not just emotionally, but physically and vice versa. You know, they really have trouble connecting with other people, like you said, you know, emotionally, but also physically.
Trouble letting their guard down.
Yes, exactly. Because they have that wall up, because they have that guard up. They don't want to open up to other people. And being intimate involves opening up to other people.
Absolutely. And then potentially creates a dependence on that person, right? Which sort of goes back to the first point you made, which in addition to being independent, you absolutely do not want to be in a relationship with friends or family or anyone where, so to say, that you owe them something. You know what I mean? Where it's you handle everything on your own. You don't want somebody else to have anything over you, right? Is the thought, right? That's the error in thinking, is if somebody helps me, if somebody supports me, if somebody's there for me, then they have something over me, which I don't want that. Therefore, I'll handle it on my own.
And I owe them something, like you said, which then kind of creates that dynamic that you have to then do something for them, or, you know, be there for them in a certain way, but you have a hard time with that. So you avoid that at all costs.
Absolutely. And just in general, it's kind of, there's a duality, right? Because it's not just, oh, well, I don't want it, but it's this fear of even being vulnerable in any moment, right? Because it's scary. Well, what happens if I am vulnerable with you and something goes wrong? What happens if I am vulnerable with you and then I get overly attached to you? What's going to happen to me if I depend on somebody and they let me down? Right? It's that fear of disappointment, that fear of being let down. You always have one foot out the door because you always have a safety plan in place. If something happens, I'm gone. You know, or the other alternative is I'm going to find everything wrong with this person just to run away, just to push myself further. I don't want to be a part of this. So here are all the things that I hate about them or that they do wrong that, well, I can't possibly overcome. So I just must distance myself.
Right. And it's that distance is that kind of one of the bigger characteristics of this attachment style, is you tend to create distance in all arenas.
And in some cases, it's self-sabotage. It could be something really good, but then you create all of these different obstacles just to make sure that it doesn't happen because the fear is so strong of getting close to someone.
Right, exactly. And that brings us, I think, to the next point, is that high reliance on your own autonomy. Like that's what you strive to be, is autonomous, because again, the dependence on somebody else is something you're going to avoid. So you want to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, autonomous in all areas of your life.
Absolutely. That makes me think immediately, if you are in a relationship with somebody who's anxiously attached, that is going to make you run for the hills right away.
Exactly,
Because
yes.
the second that an anxiously attached person feels stressed, they want to come closer. They want to ask more questions. They want to be more with you, right? That little clinginess factor. They will pursue you even further. But if you're with somebody who has an avoidant attachment style, that is going to make them want to avoid you even more, because you're pushing for closeness if you're anxious, and they are going to only put their guard up further, because that is going to make it even more difficult and more scary and makes you want to hide. And that's when you realize, like, whoa.
Yeah, and somebody with anxious attachment also asks for that reassurance, which somebody with avoidant is not going to want to give.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
100%, yeah.
So there's that pull away from, that anxious person that, a lot of the time it really just, they have a hard time being together.
Absolutely. And it really shows you your own identity in a sense, right? You realize, like, whoa, why is this happening? Why do I keep repeating the same patterns of behavior? Why do I keep running away the second that something gets serious? It could be one of those moments where you kind of have this light bulb moment and you go, whoa, why haven't I had a serious relationship? Is that something that I maybe want to experience? Because the reality is, whichever attachment style you are, you still crave and want love.
But let me ask you a question. Somebody with avoidant attachment style, do you think they would question themselves sometimes? Like, whoa, like be in tune with their emotions?
Well, I mean, it really varies person to person, right? Because if you're always trying to obtain independence, you're really focused on other things, right? You're distracting, you're always building your own identity up, you're always building your own career or whatever it is, and you really don't focus on those relationships. But I think we all as humans want connection, we want love, right? Because there's still an attempt. There's just an attempt, and then you put up a wall and you distance, and then you attempt again. So I think that very attempt in itself
makes you question.
Right, because it's like you do want closeness. You want someone to love. You want someone to trust. It's just you haven't been able to do that. So I think after a while, when you look back and you say, wow, I'm lonely. I want somebody to share life with, but I don't trust, maybe. That's when you start looking back and going, what's going on? Am I finding the wrong people? Or is it simply that I am incapable to step it up to that level, which requires a long-term relationship, which is emotional openness, right?
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, then the next thing I wanted to kind of mention is that discomfort with emotions. And I think that is part of why I even asked you that question, because sometimes people, think that people who have avoidant attachment style don't even really think about that. But I think it's a two-parter, right? Like sometimes they do when they're trying to achieve that, but then when, they put up that wall because something happens, they get triggered, whatever it may be, they put up that wall again, and then they're detached from those emotions. And the other part of it is like, if other people are trying to, like, let's say what you said, either somebody with anxious attachment also sharing their emotions, but also somebody with secure attachment sharing their emotions in a healthy way. If their partner shares their emotions, people with avoidant have a hard time receiving that or hearing that, right?
Right.
So I think that's part of it as well.
Absolutely. And I think deep down inside, also something to consider is their own emotion. It's not that they don't want to even share. It's like, oh, these emotions are all mine. I'm going to keep them to myself.
Yes.
It's completely different in a sense that they don't even acknowledge their own emotions, right? People with avoidant personality, or I should say attachment style, is where you are not even connected to your own feelings, because feelings are not important to me. I don't like the way they make me feel. I extremely do not like feeling uncomfortable. So I'm going to shove all of my feelings so far, so deep down that I don't even know my own feelings. So it's not that I don't want to. I cannot, because I have not even given any amount of time to understand my own feelings, because they are so uncomfortable for me, right? To the point where you just dismiss feelings altogether, right? So it's this dismissive perspective, right? It's like, that's not important. Oh yeah, we broke up, whatever, I'm moving on.
Right.
What do you mean? You just spent all this time with somebody and you don't care that it has ended? No, but you don't want to give any time to that. You don't want to acknowledge any of the feelings of loss or any of those, because you cannot manage them.
Right.
So therefore you just push them down as far as you possibly can so they don't exist in your world.
Right. Part of that avoidant behavior. Oh.
which isn't feasible for a long time, because then you start realizing, oh my God,
Right.
I don't know how I feel, or you may feel emotionally numb, and that could lead to some risky behaviors because you're trying to feel something because you've been shoveling it down for so long.
And what do you mean by those risky behaviors?
Well, I think that this is where you start kind of wanting to feel something, and you might engage in driving really fast, because it gives you that hit of adrenaline and it makes you feel something, right? Or perhaps you may dabble in drugs or certain things just to feel something, because you don't allow for that emotional connection. You don't allow
with other
for
people.
Right, exactly. And you don't become vulnerable. You don't experience the true intensity that feelings are. You're going to find that somewhere else, right? Because there's this void.
Right. Yeah, and that's the hard part is, I think as human beings, we tend to want to fill those voids, but it just depends on how you do it.
And it's hard. Feelings are hard. I think that's something that doesn't get enough credit, is really thinking and feeling your feelings and being able to understand them and process them and cope with them in a healthy fashion is not easy. It's quite challenging, actually, to go down into some of those painful memories, moments, traumas, whatever. They're not something you want to do. It's not a fun walk down memory lane. Usually it's something super uncomfortable.
Right. Exactly. And part of this is something you've already mentioned just previously, but that dismissive attitude, right? That's important to know. You dismiss a lot. Like your own feelings, maybe other people's feelings too. A lot
Their
of the
behaviors
time.
towards you that are hurtful.
Exactly. Yes. You just dismiss because you'd rather dismiss than actually deal with it.
Right.
Because that's hard and painful.
Or even deal with talking about the fact that someone hurt you. Right. So two steps forward is, okay, I've realized this. Now I have to go have this conversation with them. I don't want to do that, because that would be too vulnerable. They would know that I have some kind of weakness, that I'm not as independent as I say I am.
Right. And you run away.
Absolutely. Right. So ultimately into the next characteristics, which is that avoidance of conflict. Right. I don't want to have to even tell you that I have a problem. I don't want to have to talk about it. I don't want to have to fix it. I'm just going to go over there and I'm going to not deal with this, right? So the typical patterns, right, with behavior in terms of avoiding conflict is anytime anything happens within any kind of relationship, friendship, or romantic relationship, you're just going to ghost them.
Right.
I'm not dealing with this. I don't like the way you're acting. Next.
Right. On to the next mentality. Absolutely.
On to the next relationship, whatever. It's very, quick. It's not, I'm not dealing with these feelings. I don't care. I'm not going to even tell you what it's, nope, gone.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it doesn't even, like you said, it doesn't have to be in romantic, but even with family, you may not ghost them per se, right? I mean, you can, people do, right? But I think mainly you just tend to walk away. You tend to avoid them later, right? Like you're not going to discuss whatever it is that was the conflict. Absolutely. You're just going to go away and pretend like nothing ever happened the next time.
Right. But at this point, that person I can't trust. Just another person to add to the list of untrusted individuals. Right. So you don't even give them an opportunity to explain themselves, to apologize. Perhaps they did do something that offended you or hurt you or whatever. You don't even give them the opportunity to make it better, because now the trust is gone. I mean, not to say that there was a lot to begin with, but you've proven to me that you are an untrusted individual, and in that category you go.
Right. And even sometimes, the other person may not be an untrusted individual. Maybe they are a trusted individual, but you just don't ever, or maybe not ever, but most of the time you don't let people in to really know who they are. You just kind of make assumptions based on who you are, which, is somebody who has avoidant attachment based on things that have probably happened in your past, in your childhood.
Potentially, right? I mean,
or in prior relationships.
Right. Through your experiences, at some point you've decided that it's much safer to create a boundary, a wall around you that is going to protect you, because if you let anyone too close, you will experience pain that you cannot tolerate. Therefore, you're not going to even allow it to happen. So the mindset, right, behind all of this is you really long for being alone, right? You long for being not alone, like as a, in terms of not having a spouse or a partner, but you really seek that solitude, that time where you could just be yourself. Because if I think about it in a way where if I'm always worried and I don't let people too close, then I'm probably going to be in a different type of behavior, right, around others because I'm always cautious.
Right.
So what am I going to need to reduce stress is to just not be around others. And therefore that brings me comfort, is knowing that,
I can be myself. I can just relax. I don't have to put up that face, put on that mask.
Right, exactly. So you want love, but also constantly you really do seek that respite, which is solitude.
Right.
So then how do you, I think I might have stolen your next phrase.
That's okay.
So what do you think in terms of, okay, so let's say I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, holy smokes, I think that's me, yo. Right. So where do I start, dude?
Well, actually, that's a funny thing that you say that, like, holy smokes, that's me. You know, I think part of the more important step is self-awareness, is being able to identify that, holy smokes, I have some of these characteristics. And maybe this is why, you know, when I question myself, like, why can't I keep relationships, or why do I tend to run away from people? Maybe the self-awareness will open up your eyes a little bit to then be able to do something about it.
Right.
Really big factor.
And then the next part is to actually want to do something, right? You can be like, oh yeah, that's me, but I don't care.
Right. I'm just going to live my life.
I'm going to live my life. Yeah. So the next part is to say, okay, you know what? I actually want to prioritize myself. I want to prioritize connecting with others, building relationships, building my own emotional intelligence so that I can understand how I feel. I can understand why I'm acting the way that I'm acting, and then choose to act differently, choose to incorporate different coping styles for your feelings to then be able to allow yourself to open up, to say, you know what, I'm going to share my feelings with somebody, even though it makes me feel super scared.
Practicing that at times, you know, is very helpful. But also, you know, let's say you don't even know how to do that. What do you do? I think for me, the first thing that comes up is therapy. Right. You know, seek professional help, seek somebody that you can connect with that can help you and teach you how to talk about these things, how to approach some of these, you know, situations that come up in your life, and be able to deal with it in a healthy way.
In a safe space. So if you're freaking out about anything, sharing with somebody in your personal life because what that might do or whatever, this is that place where it's like, cool, this is safe. Everything is confidential. You get to just say your piece and figure out what you want to do with that.
Yeah. Or even figure out where it came from in the first place.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Being able to decipher that can really make a huge difference in the self-healing.
And of course, as we will bring up over and over and over again, is boundaries.
Right.
A good place to start is to really figure out your own boundaries, right? What are healthy boundaries? What are my boundaries?
Right. Exactly. Because there's a difference sometimes.
Absolutely.
What's healthy for me might not be healthy for you or whoever else.
Right. And then truly exploring the relationships that you have had and that you have currently. Are they at the most healthiest, awesomest level? Super
Great
clinical
terms.
there.
Yes. Oh, well.
I mean, but it's true, right?
Yes,
if I look at my circle of friends, right, and I go, do I look at a text and I go, ugh.
Right. Exactly.
Or do I look at a text and I go, oh, my dear friend had texted me, what's up? You know, versus dread. Oh my God, do I have to now go and
socialize and open up and talk about things and
right?
X, Y, and Z.
So what is your reaction truly to circumstances in your life, to people, to the connections that you already have? How open are you with people in general? Are you super I don't want to say secretive, but are you very private? That's the word.
Right.
Are you very private, about your life?
Yeah. And I think part of that is also educating yourself about maybe the other attachment styles too. Not just about what you have or what you identify with, but also the other ones, so that maybe the people in your life, maybe they're acting based on their attachment style. And you might think it's, they can't be trusted or whatever it may be that you're thinking in your head, but maybe it's just because of how they attach to other people and build those connections.
Knowledge is power, baby.
Right, exactly. Knowledge is power. And after that, practicing open communication with the people in your life. Like you said, setting boundaries. Well, first figuring out what they are, and then maybe setting boundaries with the people that are in your life to be able to see, like, are they people that I can trust? Will they follow and respect my boundaries?
Absolutely. And please, number one, be nice to yourself, man.
Yeah.
Because I think just to have some self-compassion. We all go through it. We all had experiences.
Right.
If you are just at the start of your journey of going like, whoa, I haven't even stopped for a second to look at all this stuff, and now it feels so overwhelming. It takes time.
Yes. One step at a time, really.